The bulk of the room is here for 7.1. I will move to that item. I want to just say that we need to keep all of the entrances and exits free for fire purposes. There is overflow seating and viewing downstairs at the garden level. If you want to go downstairs and you filled out a speaker card, I will be calling speakers up with advance warning, so you can actually hear your name called and come up and kind of get in line ready for your comment. But we must keep the doorways clear. So the other thing that that I want to say as the staff is preparing its report is this is at least the third time City Council is discussing the minimum wage, and before a new ordinance takes effect and is legal, it must have 2 readings. Tonight is the first reading, and the second reading of an ordinance will happen in 2 weeks' time. Then it takes effect 30 days after. And so that's just how legislation on a municipal level takes effect. So I just want to explain that. Whenever the 2 of you are ready, after the staff report, I will entertain clarifying questions only from the City Council members. I'll then go into public comment. Then the council will have time to deliberate and then move towards a vote or not, or give further direction to the staff. So, thank you, Michelle.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Michelle de Guzman with the Economic Development and Housing Division, and I'll be presenting the item tonight with Michael Gina, the Assistant City Attorney. The item before you is the first reading of the City of Emeryville Minimum Wage and Paid Sick Leave Ordinance. The purpose of tonight's report is to summarize the background history on this item, review the elements of the proposed ordinance before you, including some additional direction that is needed from the council with respect to nonprofits, summarize the implementation strategy and time frame, have the first reading of the ordinance, take public testimony as the mayor described, and then work toward the adoption of the first reading. The existing wage policies in Emeryville are Measure C, and the living wage, Measure C, applies to hotel workers, and the living wage refers to for vendors with the city, as well as financial assistance recipients, employees, and lessees, licensees, concessionaires, or franchisees. Both of those had an initial wage rate that is adjusted annually based on the local consumer price index. Currently, the Measure C minimum hourly wage is $11.39 per hour, and the living wage is $14.03 per hour. The background on the citywide minimum wage item is that this was first considered by the council back in 2005-2006 as part of an overall comprehensive wage policy. And the reason for that was initially brought forth by Measure C, which was put on the November 2005 ballot as a voter initiative, which passed. And then the city in 2006 also passed the living wage ordinance as a companion to it. Further consideration for a citywide minimum wage was considered, but then deferred to evaluate the impacts on the city of implementing Measure C and the living wage. In August 2014, an update was brought to the council to talk about those issues of the impact on the city on the implementation of the existing wage policies, as well as recent activity in other jurisdictions that was at that time forthcoming, including ordinances as well as ballot initiatives, the ballot initiatives specifically in the cities of Oakland and San Francisco that were on their November ballots. In January of this year, the city staff again came to the council to report on the results of the ballot initiatives, which did pass, as well as other cities that had passed citywide minimum wage ordinances since the August report. At that point, council directed staff to develop a draft ordinance and that direction included to base it largely on the Oakland Lift Up initiative, have the initial starting rate be the same as the current city living wage, which that would be current as of July 1st, which was at the time estimated to be $14.42. You'll see later in the ordinance it was the adjustment was $14.44 now, with a July 1st, 2015 effective date, and that separate community meetings and impact analyses were not needed prior to the development of the draft ordinance due to recent prior studies that were done for the immediately adjacent areas. In February, the draft ordinance was brought to the council, and the council made some additional comments on the draft ordinance. It included a phase-in for small businesses, at that time defined as businesses with 10 employees or less, and 501c3 organizations. Those are nonprofit organizations, specifically charitable nonprofit organizations. It had some additional revisions with regard to paid sick leave to ensure that there's no maximum use limit, and to have a broader definition for use of sick leave, including if an employee did not have a spouse or a child, to also designate an unrelated person, which can go for a period of a year. The council also directed staff to do additional research on the potential for including a tip credit in the calculation of minimum wage, as well as further research on how to define a small business, and also directed a study session to occur for April 7th. Immediately after that meeting, the draft ordinance was revised. The full ordinance was mailed to all current business license holders. It was also posted on the city website, and an information flyer was mailed to all city addresses about 2 to 3 weeks after the full ordinance was mailed to all businesses, both commercial and residential, informing them of the key aspects of the ordinance, as well as links to the full draft. The last time this came before you was April 7th at a study session where the council considered substantial written and verbal public comment on the draft ordinance. Based upon that comment, the council gave staff further direction with respect to revising the draft ordinance, and the small business definition was increased from 10 to 55 or fewer employees. There was a differentiated wage schedule for small businesses, as just defined, for the period 2015-16 to 2018-19, and that will be described in detail later by Mr. Guina. The hospitality service charge distribution and applicability was clarified. The July 1st, 2015 effective date was affirmed. Also affirmed was that the only exemption would be for those employees that are subject to a ratified collective bargaining agreement, as well as the inclusion of service animals as eligible for paid sick leave.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. I'm Michael Guina, Assistant City Attorney. So I will be walking us through the nuts and bolts of the ordinance and highlight for you some additional areas where new information has been received since the publishing of the agenda, and some check-in with the council. So the ordinance would add a new chapter 37 to the municipal code. And as Michelle indicated, the effective date of the ordinance is currently set as July of this year. The main components of the ordinance, which I will dive into in a little more detail, are the minimum wage rates, hospitality service charge, paid sick leave, and implementation and enforcement. The issues that we will also circle back with the council on are AB 669, the definition or the inclusion of nonprofits, and then the waiver for existing collective bargaining agreements. So regarding minimum wage, as Michelle had indicated, your direction was that we would define small businesses as those businesses that have 55 or fewer employees. And the ordinance currently includes a definition for nonprofits, which are 501c3 organizations. So the wage rate for businesses which are not small businesses or not nonprofits would be $14.44 an hour beginning July 1 of this year. And that rate would increase by CPI each successive year. For businesses which are small, for employers which are small businesses and nonprofits, the wage rate would start at $12.25 an hour beginning July 1 of this year and increase and step up, as you see here on this slide, up to $15 an hour beginning on July 1, 2018. As of July 1, 2019, the wage rates at that point for small businesses and nonprofits would be the same as the wage rates for employers of large businesses and those businesses that are not nonprofits. This table summarizes that information. The middle column here would be small businesses and nonprofits, and the right side would be the wage rates for large businesses. The wage rates from 2016 to 2020 are in italics. Those are estimated what the CPI would be, but that would change specifically as we get closer to those dates. This graph here just represents the same information on the date on the last slide, and you see here the light blue line would be large businesses, and the dotted red line would be small businesses and nonprofits. So this is a graphic representation of the information on that table. And as you see, the lines will cross in 2019 and then continue forward. This is information relative to minimum wages for other Bay Area cities. It's a lot of data. I'll walk you through it. The blue line, the light blue line again, is large businesses in Emeryville. The red line is small businesses and nonprofits. The bottom line here is the state of California. The next line up is the current Berkeley minimum wage ordinance, and the hashed line is what their proposed ordinance would be. And then finally, Oakland is here in the middle. The minimum wage, the ordinance provides a provision for learners, as that definition is in the state law. Learners would be paid 85% of the applicable minimum wage for the first 160 hours of employment. The draft ordinance provides that there is no tip credit in calculating minimum wage, and that's consistent with state law. I'm taking a moment now to address Measure C. So earlier versions of the ordinance that we had published had a recommendation to amend Measure C to reconcile its wage rates with the proposed minimum wage rates that we're considering now. On further review, staff has determined that the council doesn't have the authority to amend Measure C, which is a ballot initiative and can only be amended by the electorate. So therefore, we have removed the provisions about amending Measure C in the version of the ordinance that's for consideration tonight. Measure C will still continue to apply in parallel with the proposed minimum wage ordinance, and so hotel employees would still be subject to the provisions of Measure C as well. So moving from the Measure C, from the minimum wage rates to hospitality service charges, which is the next component of the ordinance. A service charge is a charge that is collected by the employer for services that are rendered and are actually performed by employees that actually provide the service. The ordinance would provide that the service charges that are collected would be paid entirely to the employees who actually perform the service and not the managerial employees, except to the extent that those managerial employees actually are also providing the service itself for which the service charge is collected. The service charges are do not apply to tips or gratuities. The ordinance also provides that the employer publish a plan of distribution of those service charges and distribute that to its employees, and that on a per pay period basis, the employer would provide a report on the amount of service charges collected for that pay period and how those amounts were distributed. Finally, the ordinance also provides that an employer may not deduct or credit against the wages earned due to an employee based on service charges that are earned by that employee. The next component of the ordinance is paid sick leave. So at the time that this ordinance was considered, the state had enacted AB 1522, which provides for paid sick leave on a statewide basis. However, AB 1522 is a floor, not the ceiling, and so the City Council may decide to provide greater paid sick leave benefits than those provided by state law. The ordinance provides that unless otherwise provided or specifically called out in the ordinance, the provisions of AB 1522 would apply. The paid sick leave provisions, this is a summary of how those provisions would be rolled out. Regarding covered employees, the accrual rate at 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, maximum number of usable hours, and accruable hours, and note there's no payout at separation. In previous study sessions, we had asked Council to provide us direction about what, if any, further benefits beyond, as I said, AB 1522 is a floor, not the ceiling. So we had asked Council to provide direction on if you would like further benefits beyond the minimums that AB 1522 provides, and you had given us direction regarding the definition of an employee. So there's a more expansive definition for employees that would be provided paid sick leave, as well as the maximum number of sick leave hours that an employee can accrue. Small business employees could accrue up to 48 hours of paid sick leave a year, although their employees would accrue up to 72. In terms of the maximum number of hours that are usable, you had directed that there should be no limits on the number of hours that an employee may use for paid sick leave. So the ordinance provides that an employee may use up to the maximum number of hours that they have, up to their bank of hours that they have accrued. Regarding use of paid sick leave, you'd also directed that you would like a more expansive definition that would allow an employee to provide, to designate an individual. In the event that the employee does not have a spouse or domestic partner, the employee may designate an individual for whom that employee can take paid sick leave to provide care for. And the employee may change that designation on an annual basis. Finally, you had also directed that you would like to allow employees to use paid sick leave for the care of guide dogs, signal dogs, or service dogs, as those terms are defined in the California Code. Moving on to the next component of the ordinance is enforcement. The city may enforce its ordinance through a variety of methods, including the issuance of administrative citations and orders. And I'll also be presenting later on in this agenda ordinance for the provision of the issuance of administrative citations. The city may also file a civil action and seek injunctive relief. requiring an employer to comply with its ordinance. At the same time, an employee always retains the right to bring a private right of action against an employer to enforce the employee's rights under the ordinance, and there's no need for the city to act in that regard. The employee's right to a private action is independent of any city action that may be taken. Remedies that are available to both the city and private right of action would be payment of fines, payment of back wages, cost recovery, and injunctive relief. In addition, the ordinance provides that an employer must comply with this ordinance in order to obtain a business tax certificate to operate in the city, to do business in the city. So turning to those issues that I had flagged for further review with the City Council, one of them is AB 669. When we presented this item to you back at your April study session, AB 669 had just been introduced by Assembly Member Daley. That bill would have capped the wages for qualifying tipped employees, as that term is defined in the in the bill, at $9 an hour, and would have allowed tips to be used in calculating the minimum wage that would have been paid. In addition, AB 669 would purport to supersede local minimum wage laws unless the local jurisdiction had stated its intent to establish higher minimum wages for those qualifying tipped employees. Since the April study session, the sponsor has withdrawn AB 669. That bill is still out there, but it's now the number for a different piece of legislation. And so that had happened after we had published the draft ordinance. And so what you have in front of you is a red line of the ordinance that would strike the provisions in the Section 1 purpose and intent that specifically call out AB 669. However, we did leave in language that that clarifies that it is the intent of the City Council to provide a higher minimum wage than is provided by state law. For the folks at home and in the audience, this is a red line of the language that would be struck. As you can see, it is the references to AB 669. This is the clean version of what of those revisions, and I will point out to you the last sentence where we call out the intent of the City Council to provide for a higher minimum wage than state law, and certainly any statutes that would attempt to preempt the local ordinance. So turning to the next open issue, which is the waiver through existing bargaining agreements. So the current provision of the ordinance provides that there are two potential waivers from the provisions of this ordinance. One would be through existing collective bargaining agreements, and one would be for bargaining agreements going forward. Let me take the second one first. Whenever a bargaining group comes up for renewal of its agreement, the bargaining group has the ability to waive one or more provisions of the ordinance through its negotiation with its employer. And they may waive certain provisions, again, they may waive any and all provisions of this ordinance through their collective bargaining agreement. The other exemption that we had called out was the waiver of existing collective bargaining agreements, and this that language is up on the screen in front of you. And the idea was that the staff was concerned that at the time that this ordinance had been adopted, there were MOUs in place that may have set wage rates between an employee group and its employer, and we did not want to run afoul of those agreements that had been bargained for. And so what we had proposed in earlier versions of this ordinance was that to the extent any agreements were in place at the time this ordinance was adopted, the ordinance would not affect those bargaining units until the expiration of the then current MOU, and then the bargaining group would then be free to include, to be subject to the ordinance or bargain the inclusion of parts or all of the ordinance in their new MOU. Since the ordinance had been published, we had received, the city attorney's office had been contacted by counsel for eBase, who had requested that the city remove this provision regarding existing collective bargaining units from the ordinance. After further review and consideration, staff feels like we can remove that ordinance if the city council so chooses. If the city council chooses to keep this language in the ordinance, however, we would suggest that you add this language, this clause in that provision to clarify that to the extent that those existing MOUs address wage rates or wages are wage rates, that the existing MOUs would not be subject to the provisions of this ordinance. Again, this is only in the event that the City Council wishes to keep this provision in place regarding existing MOUs. If the City Council desires to remove this provision of waiver through existing collective bargaining agreements, staff feels like we can do that, and we would still have an effective ordinance. Nonprofit corporations. So this is the last open issue that we wanted to provide additional information and receive direction from the council. At our last study session in April, we had neglected to obtain your direction regarding the treatment of nonprofit corporations. The current ordinance provides that only 501c3 entities would be defined as nonprofit corporations, and all other 501c corporations would be treated as large businesses. And so the question that staff is asking council is what treatment you would like for 501c3s. The options are to retain the current draft language and provide that only 501c3s would be defined as nonprofits and be treated at the same wage rates as small businesses. This council may also expand the definition of nonprofit corporations to include all 501c entities. Or the council can altogether remove the definition of nonprofit corporation, with the idea that most nonprofits are small businesses anyway, have 55 or fewer employees, and would therefore be captured by the definition of small businesses. It's staff's recommendation that you choose option 3, remove the definition of nonprofit corporations, and those nonprofits would again, the nonprofits that are 55 employees or fewer would also be captured in the definition of small businesses. Okay, I'm going to turn this back over to Michelle.
And this is just the final review of information that you have largely seen before. The fiscal impacts for this current fiscal year are estimated to be approximately $35,000 with regard to the production and distribution of education and outreach materials. For next fiscal year and ongoing, cost estimates are approximately $125,000, and that is for the equivalent of a staff person for administration and enforcement, a full-time staff person, as well as additional wages and benefits that would accrue primarily to the city's part-time temporary employees. So the ongoing costs are approximately $205,000 with annual adjustments, of course, for wage adjustments. The mid-cycle budget adjustment that will be coming to you in June does include these costs in their respective fiscal years. And one last item that was not in prior fiscal impact reports and not in your written documentation is that through the process which is described, there is an appeal process, and should the appeal process go through its full its full process, then a hearing officer may be required, and those costs may be recovered through the administrative citation process. This is a summary of a potential implementation plan and timeline. Staff looked at two options. One is the July 1st option that is described in the ordinance. And these are the major tasks that need to be accomplished. So I'll sort of go through the tasks and describe the difference between the two time frames that are described here. It's assumed the ordinance will be approved upon its second reading on May 19th. And then the major tasks related to the implementation will be the development of an intake and resolution process. And that includes the development of administrative instructions. Those are the instructions that staff uses to actually spell out the steps for taking in a complaint, how to effectively investigate it, how to make a determination, as well as once a determination has been made, how to confirm that resolution has been reached, and if resolution has not been reached, any administrative fines, citations, and the appeal process. And also that needs to be produced are the outreach and information materials. One is the official notice, which is the poster that would be posted in all workplaces, FAQs, likely based, frequently asked questions, based on the different groups that would be largely affected, employers, employees, as well as sort of general questions. The sample notice, which must be provided to all employees as described in the ordinance, as well as a list of financial and legal resources, both for employers and employees as they may need them, under this ordinance. And then the last item would the actual rollout of the public information and notification through direct outreach to the employers to provide them all of the information that they need in order to enact the ordinance, updating the city website, as well as information sessions for both employers and employees to familiarize them with the ordinance and their rights and obligations underneath it. And then, of course, at that point, then the actual wage increases and sick leave accrual requirements would go into effect. The first is July 1st. As compared to October 1st. July 1st is what is currently in the ordinance, and the primary function difference between the two is that the development of the intake and resolution process in order to reach the July 1st deadline would need to occur concurrently with the development of the information and outreach materials. This could result in making it an iterative process in that as the administrative instructions are clarified, the information may need to be revised just in terms of getting that moving. And then outreach would occur early July with the information sessions very close to when the actual wages go into effect. The October 1st, having the implementation of the wage increases go on October 1st allows for the processes to run sequentially rather than concurrently, so that the outreach and information materials are developed more fully based on approved and finalized administrative instructions and processes. And then the public information process has some time to also do more full outreach to all of the affected parties, as well as potentially address any issues that may come up as a result of the outreach process. And as an aside, some of the comments or the inquiries that I received over this process were from businesses just sort of asking for clarification as to what exactly is being implemented and why, because they need to update their software systems and all of that information in order to technically implement it. So the slightly longer time frame of an additional 3 months would allow additional time for those to go into effect as well. Based on the foregoing, staff is seeking additional direction from council on two main issues. With respect to nonprofits, does the council wish to retain the current definition, expand it to all 501c3 nonprofit corporations, or, as Michael indicated, remove nonprofit corporations and just have businesses subject to the different conditions based on the number of paid employees increase that they have. And the second is, does the council wish to move the effective date of the wage increase and paid sick leave accrual conditions to October 1st? If that is desired, should the annual adjustments thereafter occur on October 1st or July 1st?
So I'll bring this to conclusion. So our recommendation is that the council provide direction to staff on the issue of nonprofits, the effective date of the ordinance, and if you could also provide us some clarification about how you'd like to address the issue of the waiver of the ordinance through existing collective bargaining agreements. We also recommend that you take public testimony on the ordinance, and then the ordinance be introduced after a motion read by title only, and thereafter you adopt the first reading. That's the conclusion of our report. We're available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right. So, council, this is the time for clarifying questions only. We'll deliberate after public comment.
Mayor Akin, I'd just like to thank you both. That was a very clear presentation of what we have in front of us. And I like to move forward and hear from the public if possible. Let's move along.
Thank you. Thank you both for your preparation. So, without further, any other? No, okay. So without further ado, I'll begin calling people up for public comment. Because of the numbers involved, we will limit the time for each speaker to 2 minutes. I think you can convey what you want to convey in that amount of time, so think about how to be concise. And the last thing that I want to say is this is an issue that evokes strong emotion, and we have a tradition in this town to be able to listen respectfully to people, and I would like to discourage applauding, booing, or other kinds of behaviors that relate to what a speaker is saying. If you wish to show your support for someone, you could use you could use the signs that you brought and wave them. Or you can also use deaf applause, which in some circles is known as twinkling with your fingers. So if you want to practice twinkling, you can twinkle. But I am serious about if this gets unruly, I have the prerogative to close the meeting down and I'll go home early. I want to keep this respectful. And so with that, I'll call up the first speakers. Please, when you hear your name, please line up behind the second one so we can move along briefly. Judith Timmel, Christian Patz, Barbara Inch. Remember, 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Judith Timmel. I'm a resident of Emeryville for over 20 years, and also a member of a residents group called Residents United for Livable Emeryville. We've been working for a long time to improve the quality of life here in Emeryville, and we believe that this includes both the workers in Emeryville, the small businesses, the locally serving businesses for whom we have a great deal of affinity and want to support. So we are supporting the workers in their the minimum wage ordinance that's before you, and we believe that with the phase-in for small businesses, this is a good compromise, and I feel that would allow both workers and businesses in Emeryville to thrive. I, for one, as a resident, like to purchase at small businesses, and I'm willing to pay more to have workers get a fair wage. So please, I do recommend adoption of this reading. Thank you.
Yeah. Christian, good use of the signs.
Thank you, and I want to thank you guys for putting this ordinance up. I'm always impressed when Emeryville is ahead of the curve on things, and I feel like this has been a long time coming and really well needed. And
Christian, can you lift the microphone? You're being broadcast to.
Oh, okay. So, you know, and I always am perplexed when people say businesses can't figure out how to pay employees a living wage. You know, the businesses in this community are some of the most creative and thoughtful around, and I'm sure they can figure it out how to make this work for them and make a profit on it still. And so I'm really excited to see this come to town, and I want to encourage you to pass this ordinance. Thank you.
I'll just comment, we just heard from a school board member. Thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Barbara Inch, and I've lived in Emeryville for over 10 years. I shop at local businesses, and I frequent a lot of the local restaurants. I support a living wage for the workers at all of these businesses, and I think it's great that we're finally realizing that these are more than just numbers, and they're actually people trying to support themselves and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Maribel Martinez, Shonda Roberts, Jacqueline Kincaid. I hope I got that right.
Hi, my name is Maribel Martinez, and I'm a janitor here in Emeryville. And I think the minimum wage should go up because everything's expensive, food, rent, and then we have to pay for people to take care of our kids. So at the end of the month, we don't really get too much. We don't really get money left, you know, like to pay our all our expenses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Atkins and council members. My name is Shonda Roberts. I've worked in the fast food sector for 20 years, and I'm involved in the Fight for 15 campaign. I see no need in prolonging this wage increase for the working people of Emeryville. All these businesses have been knowing for years that a wage increase was coming. That's more than enough time to make the proper adjustments to be implemented into the establishment's agenda. If you're still for prolonging the wage increase, think about this. The workers' bills cannot be prolonged. The workers cannot prolong feeding their families. And these workers cannot prolong getting to and from work, which are in some of these small businesses which would like to prolong this pay raise for these workers that need and deserve and should get. If they don't get it, I feel we should shut them down.
All right.
Hi, my name's Jacqueline Kincaid. I'm a UC Berkeley graduate. I work
Can you
at
talk closer to the mic?
yeah. I work at a Starbucks in Emeryville. I don't live in Emeryville. I live with my sister in Berkeley. I don't make enough money to afford to pay for rent on my own. Yeah. My financial situation causes me a lot of anxiety and depression. I have medical bills that I can't pay. I have student debt that I can't pay.
It's okay, babe. Go ahead, honey.
Take your time. Up to 2 minutes.
A lot of my coworkers can't get to work easily. They don't have cars. They don't live in the area because they can't afford to. They have kids to take care of. I personally can't focus on getting another job, working towards a career that I want, because I'm focused on just trying to pay for things. Yeah, and I can't do much outside of work. I don't make enough money. Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Roxanne Villaluz, D. Willette. Oh boy, I'm sorry, I'm going to mess this up. Kaivan Sabeki.
Hi. I'm Dee Willette. Roxanne's not here. She's a coworker of mine.
Okay.
I am one of the worker owners of the Arismendi Bakery and Pizzeria in Emeryville. I've been an owner of that business since 2007. I have on and off been a resident of Emeryville. And as a small business owner in Emeryville, I strongly support this legislation. And the workers and owners at our business make $17 an hour, which is one of the benefits of owning the means of production. I think that a lot of money coming into the local economy due to this proposed legislation can only benefit all of the small businesses in Emeryville. And I strongly hope that you stand by the people who are working so hard in this town and working so hard to make this happen. The cost of living is going way up. It's hard to afford to live here. Don't make it hard to afford to be a place to work in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin Sabegi, and I worked at the Hyatt House for 8 months, and I lived on 29th and West for 5 years. When I worked at the Hyatt House, I made a living wage, which was $12 an hour plus tips, and I couldn't do at my 8 months there. I couldn't afford. I struggled every month to make rent. I couldn't afford to pay other bills. I had to quit my gym. I struggled. I borrowed money from families to help pay for food. I made tips, but at times, a lot of times, it was too slow to bring anything back. Average tips I made a night was about $30 a night, which was also taxed. So I support raising minimum wage, and and against the tip credit.
Thank you. Next is Bernie Montiel, Miriam Cuevas, Susie Montoya.
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Bernardo. I'm representing on behalf of the EBOC Organizing Committee and all the low-wage workers. I'm a fast food worker myself as well. I work at Jack in the Box in Alameda. I stand in solidarity with all my co-workers and all the low-wage workers. The reason why I'm here today is to, speak to each one of the individuals because we need to take necessary actions because me personally, seeing other families that have 3 kids and working at a part-time job as a fast food worker, I don't know how they do it to able to be stable and still supply for their family and able to be able to pay rent, pay expenses, bills, and me personally, our family struggled. Growing up in the poverty, where I live is. We have just roads that just uneven pavements, and we have potholes, and I think that's another reason why we should raise the minimum wage is to able to give back the community, to be able to go to our local convenience stores to provide the necessary basic requirements for every living day. So that's why I'm here today.
Thank you.
Mi nombre es Miriam Cuevas y trabajo en Jack in the Box de Alameda. Y estoy aquí para que nos suban el salario del mínimo para que nuestra familia esté una mejor vida y pues no estamos luchando para hacer mucho dinero, sino para nuestra familia, y estamos luchando para $15 y una unión para llevar una mejor vida porque todo está caro por acá en Oakland. Yo vivo en Oakland. Gracias.
Hi, my name is Miriam. I work in Jack in the Box, and I'm here to support raising the minimum wage so that folks can provide for their families. This wage is not going to make us richer, but it is going to help us provide for our families. I live in Oakland, and I know that it's helping folks in Oakland.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Susie Montoya. I'm an employee of City of Oakland Parks and Recreation. I'm also a member of SEIU 1021. I'm here in support of the minimum wage raise. First, because I have paid sick leave. And as you can see, I tore my meniscus like 6 months ago, and I'm still working. I work with 20 kids by myself a day. So I need to be very active, and I can't miss work. I'm a PPT with the City of Oakland. I'm permanent part-time, but I had no sick leave. So by the time surgery comes up, I can take that time now. Also because I'm also a former worker in the city of Berkeley, cleaning lifelong medical centers, and I had to let that job go. One, because I tore my meniscus, but two, because it cost me $50 every 2 weeks to travel on public transportation. And I was only making $9 an hour. That's not enough. I'm a single parent of 3. That means I'm the head of my household. I'm responsible for rent, PG&E, water, and none of that stops. And I need to pay that. You know, so without this minimum wage raise, you know, like she said, it's not going to put me up here, you know, on high status, but it does help us support our families and also, you know, to bring in more for our families. I have 3 teenagers and they're working, you know, and the minimum wage will also help so they can contribute to our household. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Casey Brook. Oh boy, I'm sorry, I can't read this, but the last name is Preston, and Gary Jimenez.
Good evening. My name is Casey Brooks. I'm a registered nurse for Alameda Health Systems. I'm also a member of SEIU 1021. I support the minimum wage increase because being a nurse, I probably make 6 times more than what the recommended minimum wage increase would be. And with my income, I still pay at least 1/3 of my income to overhead, like either a mortgage or rent. So can you imagine with people that's making 6 times less, not being able to provide housing for their children, not being able to afford the local rents, or even one day owning a home, making 6 times less? I struggle as a nurse, and I can imagine what their struggles are. I also support the increase because my own son was working at one time in Bay Street in Emeryville, and I was once a minimum wage worker working in fast food and retail. And I could tell you one thing, they don't get full-time hours. We know that. Their full-time hours might be 10 or 20 hours a week, if that. So you do the math, and you tell me if $9 an hour working 20 hours a week is enough money. You do the math. My son working in Bay Street, I still had to supplement his income. Mama this, mama that, mama can you help me, mama, 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 mama. Help people, help themselves.
Thank you. All right. So the name that I couldn't quite get the first name, it might be Sean Preston? Someone here by that name? Gary Jimenez? Okay.
I just want to give a little bit of overview about this law that we're facing today.
Are you Mr. Preston?
I'm Mr. Preston.
Okay,
Hello.
great.
Sean Preston. I've worked with the City Council on this issue for a year, worked on it politically for 2 years, and I just want to hit back at one idea that's been suggested, that this is an unprecedented kind of proposal we've got before us. Let's look at the facts. In 2003, San Francisco proposed the first minimum wage. First minimum wage in a city in the country, $8 an hour. Albuquerque followed them in 2003. Then nothing happened until 2011. About 3 to 5 more cities came on. In 2012, we were up to 10. And in 2014 was the big year for municipal minimum wages. 10 new cities came online. A total of 19 cities or counties now have higher minimum wages. 11 million people now, from 2003 to now, are now covered by the minimum wage. Moreover, what we're looking at in 2015, Los Angeles City, Los Angeles County, San Diego, Washington, D.C., Daly City, and up to 5 more Bay Area cities are going to pass the minimum wage, hopefully most of them going to 15. So far from being unprecedented, what we are in Emeryville is we are in the middle of a great trend, a great American trend to lift wages for the lowest amongst us. What we do here today will make sure that other Bay Area cities raise their wages faster. So you're not just concerned today with the wages for Emeryville minimum wage workers. What you do today will have an impact on hundreds of thousands of other people struggling with this economy in our region, and I hope you guys go ahead and pass this bill. Thank you.
Okay. Gary Jimenez, and then after Gary, there'll be Elsa Portillo and Maria Aguilar.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you this evening for entertaining this measure. Again, I just want to say thank you for being progressive. Thank you for being willing to take a stand on this issue. It's an incredibly important stand, as you can understand. I know that you know that because you're actually entertaining the issue. And I just want to say we appreciate that on behalf of all working class families. It's a step up for people. It's not the end all to everything that we need. There's still issues like affordable medical assistance, medical health care, affordable housing, other issues that in our communities, in our society, we need to address for working class people so that people can exist with dignity. But it is a good step forward. It's a good step up. And we certainly appreciate that you, as city council members elected by the people for the people, are taking a stand for the people tonight in this. And I just hope that you move this. I would ask that you would consider removing the one provision, which is the collective bargaining provision, and just take that out of the ordinance and pass it without that provision. Thank you.
Elsa? Yeah.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Elsa Portillo y trabajo para el Hyatt House desde hace 8 años.
Good afternoon, my name is Elsa Portillo. I worked for the Hyatt House Hotel for the last 8 years.
Sí, vengo a apoyar a todos los trabajadores porque nosotros luchamos 8 años para tener nuestros beneficios que son muy buenos y estoy muy agradecida con todos ustedes, pues con la ayuda de ustedes pues no se hubiera logrado.
I'm here to support all the workers because we fought 8 years to have our very good benefits, and I'm very thankful to you all for your support in winning our benefits.
Sí, pues vengo a apoyarlos porque se merecen pues que ganen un poquito más y así estar bien.
And so I'm here to support other workers making a little bit more money. So that they can be better off.
Sí, y les agradezco mucho, los quiero mucho, estoy muy agradecida con todos ustedes y muchas gracias.
And I'm very thankful for all of you, and thank you very much.
Okay. Is there Maria Aguilar? Thank you.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es María Aguilar. Trabajo en Hyatt House, Emeryville.
Good evening. My name is Maria Aguilar. I work at the Hyatt House, Emeryville.
Trabajo por 9 años. Y también luchamos muy fuerte junto con ustedes, con el apoyo de ustedes, para tener lo que tenemos.
I've worked there for 9 years, and I also struggled, fought very hard to have what we have together with you all.
Tenemos una aseguranza 100% de seguro médico, tenemos días de enfermedad, vacaciones, días personales, un trabajo seguro, un buen trato y todo eso, toda esa lucha la logramos por un transcurso de 8 años, siempre pidiéndole ayuda a ustedes y lo logramos.
So we have paid sick days, we have 100% paid health insurance, we have vacation. We won all of that over the course of a fight that lasted 8 years. We were always asking for your support, and you supported us, and we achieved it.
Entonces creo que también se va a lograr el sueldo mínimo aquí en Emeryville para todos los de comida rápida, y que ojalá también ellos se puedan organizar como nosotros lo hicimos. Los estamos apoyando. Me siento muy feliz de tener lo que tengo, y también con el mismo deseo que todos tengan las mismas prestaciones y puedan tener lo que necesitan en su casa.
So I'm here to support all the workers, like the fast food workers, that they should have what we have, that they should have a raise. Someday, hopefully, they can organize and have a union like we have, and we support. We're here to support them. Thank you.
Yo sé que se va a lograr, y muchas gracias. Buenas noches.
Thank you.
I know we're going to succeed, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Good use of the signs. Jane Martin, Ilda Chavez, and Nestor Cuellas.
Good evening, Jane Martin from SEIU USWW. We represent janitors and security officers in Emeryville and throughout California. So our members have been very supportive of the Fight for 15 and have been rallying in the fast food stores with the fast food workers. Unfortunately, there's several details of this policy that would leave janitors out of a movement that they started to create. So we're very supportive of raising the minimum wage here. We hope we can do it, but we'd like to fix some of the details and the unintended consequences. The first is the collective bargaining opt-out. I was very happy to hear from staff that they're open to changing that. And, you know, there are legal issues that have been raised I don't think are actually relevant. We've done it in other cities. The other issue is around the size of 55 employees. So in the contracted property services industry, there are different dynamics in play. One is that our contractors are giant companies that have thousands of employees all over, and they may only have a few employees in Emeryville. Therefore, they wouldn't apply, and that doesn't make sense. The other issue is actually even worse, which is that if you had a union contractor paying good wages and benefits come in at the higher rate because they were a larger company, they could be underbid by a non-union small business here that would actually lower standards for workers in an industry where the union has really fought to raise them. We had that actually happen at Pixar, and the contractor at Pixar now is a notorious, horrible contractor that has lots of problems with sexual harassment and with wage theft. So, you know, we want to see something move forward. We're very happy that you're taking leadership on this issue. We know that this is precedent setting, and the details are precedent setting too. So we have to get it right. If the policy could be amended tonight to deal specifically with contracted property services workers, that would be the best. And we know there's a lot of concern for small business. We know they need a longer phase-in, but if there could be a specific exemption for our industry because of the structure, that's what we need. If we can't do it tonight, we're going to have to follow up with trailing legislation.
Okay. All right. Hilda Chavez.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Hilda Chávez. Yo trabajo para The Towers en Emeryville. Somos un grupo del día y soy janitor. Trabajo por 11 años. También trabajé en la IKEA por otros 11 años, desde el 2002, que empecé ganando a $8.32, terminé ganando $12.64. En 11 años se pueden imaginar qué tanto era el aumento. Ahora esta noticia para mí es agradable, es de mucha ayuda junto con mis compañeros porque nos va a ayudar, no para hacernos ricos como dijo una de las mujeres que ya pasó, pero sí nos va a ayudar para soportar más en la casa. En ese tiempo tenía yo 2 hijos y era madre soltera. Fue bien difícil, yo los dejaba solos todo el día, de lunes a sábado. Fue duro. Por eso estoy aquí, para que ustedes nos puedan ayudar. En sus manos está las necesidades de nosotros. Creo que mucha gente como yo, pero no tiene la oportunidad de venir a hablar. Así que, por favor, les agradezco que puedan ayudarnos a los pequeños negocios, a los grandes negocios, que podamos ganar igual. Porque si hay 2 negocios, uno paga a 10, el otro paga a 14, todos vamos a querer trabajar en el de 14. Entonces, yo pienso que lo justo sería que todos ganáramos igual. Gracias. Ojalá que puedan ayudarnos.
Good evening, my name is Hilda and I work at the Towers in Emeryville. We're a small group of us here from the day shift. We're janitors. I've worked there for 11 years and I started out at $8.40 and now went up to $12.50. Can you imagine how hard it is to deal with that salary? This proposal would really help us out, help us with our costs at home. For much of this time I was a single mom with 2 kids and I had to leave my kids at home so that I could go work, and it was very hard. There are many more people that couldn't be here tonight, so we hope that you can do this to help us because it will help all of us. And I really hope that for in our industry that you can make sure it applies to all businesses, because if there's one business on one side of the street paying lower and one paying higher on the other side of the street, obviously people are going to want to work for the one that makes more money. So thank you, and we hope you can help us tonight.
Otra de las cosas que ojalá que pudieran aumentar el igual, porque nosotros tenemos unión, pero el que tengamos unión no quiere decir que no tenemos las mismas necesidades que los demás. Ojalá que lo puedan hacer y hacer posible este mínimo wage.
One more thing, I hope that you can raise the minimum wage for those of us that have a union and for those of us who don't, because we're all struggling with the cost of living. We all have the same costs and we all need this increase. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Nestor Cuellas. I'm the field rep for SEIU USWW. I represent about 3,000 workers in Alameda County, about 400 in Emeryville. So we represent all the workers we are here, and we represent a lot of them that are working at night. Right now they are working. They start at 5:30 p.m. and finish at 2 in the morning. We support the we support the living wage in Emeryville, but we are concerned about some part of the language of the new ordinance, especially the collective bargaining opt-out language that is proposed. Our legal advice, as well as our experience working with other cities, indicates that this language is not necessary. Recently in Oakland, after Measure FF passed, the janitors companies had the possibility to ask us to the union for a waiver. So about the living wage in Oakland. So we told them no, but we had the possibility to negotiate with them. So here in Emeryville, in this way, we won't have the possibility to negotiate with the companies. If you pass this ordinance as it is, you are tying our hands to negotiate. We support raising the minimum wage in Emeryville, but please do it in a way that will benefit all the workers, especially the janitors. Please amend the collective bargaining opt-out language tonight, please. Thank you.
Thank you. We're more than halfway through public comment. Next will be Susan Newman, Neil McDonald, and Steve Gilbert. Do I need to call the names again? Susan Newman, Neil McDonald, and Steve Gilbert.
Excuse me, I didn't put my name in. Sean did.
So, all right, I'll hold. Reverend Ambrose Carroll, Reverend Ken Chambers, and Emmy Jenkins.
Yes, good evening. My name is Ambrose Carroll, pastor of the church by the side of the road in Berkeley, residents of West Oakland. Glad to be here tonight. Grown up in Oakland, I've always been a fan of Emeryville and the oasis that she has been. I'm also, I think, I definitely want to stand in favor of this minimum wage. I think in the midst of an oasis and all things growing, I look at the ocean and notice that when the tide comes in, all the ships rise. And I think that this needs to be done not just for the workers, but for everyone that is involved. I've heard the word help, and I've heard people come and say, will you help us? And I'm reminded of the words of Lila Watson of Australia that says, if you've come to help us, you're wasting your time. But if your liberation is bound to our liberation, then roll up your sleeves and let's work together. I really believe that that all of us have a stake in this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emmy. I'm 16 years old and I have 2 jobs. One of them is through a nonprofit organization and the other is through Pack and Save right around the corner. And I also have a cousin who works with me, and she is the oldest of 5 children. Her mother is on public assistance, and with my cousin working, she still doesn't have enough money to take care of herself and the 5 children that she has, and enough to pay rent. So my cousin also has 2 jobs, working at the Black Bear Diner and also working with me at the grocery store. My mother also has a job, and I have, even though I'm very young, I still have a lot of expenses myself. I have phone bills to pay, or a phone bill to pay. I have to make sure I get back and forth to work and to school. If I'm not able to get to school, then I am behind in my assignments, which keeps me from being able to apply for the colleges that I want to. I will end up having to go to a junior college instead of a university straight out of high school because I haven't had enough time to accumulate the 230 credits that I need to graduate to go to a UC. And more than likely, if I decide not to go to a UC, I will not be able to get a good job even though I went to a junior college. And raising the minimum wage will also help the economy. Like, if I have more money to spend, I will spend more money. If I spend more money, then you guys get more money. If you guys get more money, I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. So I also believe that my time is up. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Emmy.
Hi, my name is Reverend Ken Chambers, pastor of Westside Missionary Baptist Church in West Oakland. I'm also working and a member of FAME, Faith Alliance for a Moral Economy. Let me just go back 40 years when my dad had a janitorial business and we had a count in Emeryville. And by the way, I am an Emeryville resident. I live in Emeryville, work in Oakland, pastor in West Oakland. My dad had the count ETMF before he had all this retail that's built here, ETMF Trucking Company, and he paid me $60 a month at 8 years old to go there and clean up every day with him. Out of that created an opportunity to me that I managed a property management job at 17, went on to buy my first home at 21, have 3 kids, send them through UC Berkeley College, which have their degrees and going on with their careers, and now trying to replicate that also through other generations. My son is a music artist. What I'm trying to say, a livable wage gives a person the idea that they can make it in this economy, in this world. And hats off to you, mayor, council members, staff, city mayor. You've done an excellent job of renovating and bringing retail to the city in a very difficult time in order to do that. So you should be Can we commend them for Emeryville? You should be commended. Honestly, you have done something in this city that most cities couldn't have done, and we thank you for that. Now it's time to continue on with your leadership as you're doing, and I just suggest one is this study that no study needs to be needed, no studies needed. This is a no-brainer. You give an honest day pay wage to folks, they feel good about themselves, it reduces crime, it helps in the long run, it raises more money. The young lady just elegantly, everybody elegantly have spoke as well. Finally, in my closing, I just want to say this real quick. You have something already established for the big boys, IKEA and so on and thus forth, which has made so many billions of dollars in the city. Yeah, they should be on a different playing field, and the smaller business having their ability to get up to speed there. Thank you for your services.
Amalia Tremoro, Guadalupe Salazar, and Ben de Harlinke. Sorry about that.
Good evening. My name is Amalia Chamorro. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for United Way of the Bay Area. And our mission is to cut poverty in half by 2020 in the Bay Area. And we support raising the minimum wage because we believe that it is one of the most important policy changes that can help lift hardworking families out of poverty. You've heard from many compelling testimony tonight about what this means for individuals and families to have that extra income in their pocket to be able to meet their basic needs. And we also have a lot of data to be able to back that up. We've actually partnered with the Insight Center for Community Economic Development to calculate the self-sufficiency in terms of what it actually takes to make ends meet in the Bay Area, which has one of the highest cost of living in the nation. The true cost of living consists of things like education, healthcare, transportation, and all of the things that it takes for a family to be able to live through every day. In Alameda County, a household of 2 adults, 1 preschooler, and 1 school-aged child needs to earn $72,830,000 a year to cover the cost of basic needs. This requires 4 full-time minimum wage jobs, which is unrealistic for any family to be able to work 4 full-time jobs and take care of their children. But tonight you have the opportunity to help provide that much needed income boost to these individuals and families who work hard every day just to put food on their tables. So we respectfully urge you to vote yes in support of the minimum wage ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Guadalupe Salazar. I'm a fast food worker, and I'm also a proud mother of 3, and I'm a resident of Oakland. And yes, I just got a raise of $12.25, and there's nothing bad about it. And there's nothing bad about raising the minimum wage in Emeryville, and it's in your hands to do it. You have the power to do this beautiful thing for all of these people that really needs that money. It's little money, like they say, it won't make us rich, but it will help us to go through in our life and raise the economy too, because, well, like, I think I said that before, but I've been going out, been going to the movies, to the shopping here, there, shoes, whatever. I mean, I've been spending my money in Oakland, and
That's a hard thing to say here. Spending money in Oakland.
I was about to say, like, I have friends who live in Emeryville, and I will visit, and I will spend my money here. Of course, then, like I say, it's in your hands to do it. Like, you got the power. You are the ones that we can rely on to solve these lives that live in poverty. And like we said, it won't make us rich, but it will help us to put food on the table, to take care of our lives. Like, our lives depend on the minimum wage. Sometimes our lives are in danger because we don't have money, we don't have money to buy a car, get gas on it, pay the insurance, or anything else. Thank you. Do the right thing.
Ben? I'm sorry I messed up your last name.
That's quite all right. Hello, my name is Benjamin DeHarling. I teach in the communication department at St. Mary's College of California. I'm an Oakland resident. I grew up in Oakland. I've lived in Oakland most of my life. I'm a member of SEIU 10-1 and the St. Mary's Contingent Faculty Union. I'm here this evening to support minimum wage workers and speak to the need for a raise in the minimum wage and paid sick leave. Thanks to the Council for considering the issue and the ordinance this evening. Just to speak briefly to the context of this overall proposed ordinance, obviously, as the speakers this evening have testified to, and as I'm sure the Council is aware, these are difficult times for working people. In the United States, we're seeing levels of income equality that have been rising steadily for the last 3 decades. In the context of the San Francisco Bay Area, with the tech boom centered in San Francisco, the cost cost of living here has skyrocketed. Hence, we see things like the Fight for 15, the April 15th demonstrations in Berkeley, and demonstrations throughout the U.S. and the Bay Area. With fast food workers leading the fight, as well as support from community organizations, including the SEIU. There's a fight going on that is about all low-wage workers, and as such, as an adjunct faculty member myself, on April 15th, I joined with other low-wage workers, both in solidarity and as a matter of social justice, which is also not just economic, but a question of racial and gender justice, as minimum wage workers are disproportionately women and people of color. I want to echo the Reverend's earlier comments and suggest that we all have a stake in this. We're at a historic moment where we see increasing social movement and media attention around wealth inequality, with a range of movements from Occupy to Fight for 15, organizations like Faculty Forward, Adjunct Action, a number of organizations. The raise in the minimum wage is popular in the Bay as well as a number of cities, and please support it. Thanks so much.
Next is Weiling Huber, Angie Nandin, Jennifer Lynn.
Hi, Mayor Etkin, council members. My name is Weiling Huber, and I'm the president of Unite Here Local 2850, and we represent hotel workers and at the Hyatt House, the Hilton Garden, and the Oaks Club here in Emeryville. I want to support the passage of the raised minimum wage today. I'm really happy to see this day here in Emeryville. I would point out that, as I negotiate approximately 45 contracts every 3 years in our union, I've heard every single employer say every single time that they can't afford the proposals that we put on the table. There's a tenet, though, in labor law where if you say you generally can't afford it, you have to show your books. And I've only had an employer show their books maybe 4 times in 20 years. So I really think that it's important that the employers can afford it. I would also add that we really support the collective bargaining opt-out, where it's negotiated with the parties in clear and unambiguous terms. Sometimes that's necessary for us to be able to move money around within a contract, given that pension and healthcare is so expensive. But it shouldn't be automatic. It should be something where the parties sit down and meet and negotiate over that. So I support the amendment that's been brought up by USWW to remove the language that says that if you're in an unexpired collective bargaining agreement, that you're automatically waived out of the living wage. But I support the opt-out in general that's similar to the one in Measure C. Thank you.
Good evening, council members, staff. My name is Jennifer Lynn. I'm with the East Bay Alliance for a Sustainable Economy and the Lift Up Coalition. And I know some folks have had to leave, but everyone who has a sign or wears a sticker or believes that Emeryville deserves a raise, can you please wave your sign or stand up?
They've been well used tonight.
Some folks had to leave, but first and foremost, I want to thank the city staff and council for the diligent work that you all have done over the past few months. The leadership that this city has shown is really contributing to a positive tipping point on the minimum wage. 2 years ago, a pathway to $15 an hour was unthinkable, and now it's virtually unstoppable, due to a broad consensus among workers, residents, small businesses, people of faith, and elected officials. More and more, it's a question not of if we raise the wage, but when we raise the wage. We all know workers can't wait for an increase in the minimum wage. Low-wage workers are in crisis. You've heard from many of them tonight. Workers making $9 an hour can't put food on the table. And with the wealth in this city from big box corporations like IKEA that make $3.7 billion in profits last year, we can afford to do better, and we can do better. We support a broad-based policy that leaves no worker behind, a policy that includes tipped workers and includes unionized workers. As you know, as Amalia mentioned as well, we live in one of the most expensive regions in the country, and the cost of living has gone up year after year while the real value of wages has flatlined. All workers deserve a raise. This policy tonight is part of a new regional minimum wage standard and is on par with Oakland and San Francisco. As a city that's changed so much from its gritty industrial past to become the boom town and the mall of the East Bay, Emeryville is leading the way. We applaud the work of the council tonight and will continue to work with you to ensure the strongest policy is made real. Thank you.
Angie? Yeah. After Angie, I'll be calling Ken Bukowski, CJ Patterson, and Rob Arias.
My name is Angie Nandine. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. And again, thank you for having the patience to listen to all of our public comment this evening. I am a worker at the Claremont Hotel Club and Spa, and we have been here with Local 2850 Unite Here for many occasions to ask you to support workers, and here we are again asking the same thing. All workers actually need a living wage, and to raise the minimum wage, it's time. These workers need your support, and they need you to do the right thing, which is to increase the minimum wage, and that also includes tipped workers. I've been a tipped worker for 25 years, and we don't always make a lot of money as people assume that we do. It's seasonal. Sometimes we're on a minimum wage ourselves, and sometimes we don't make very much in tips. To exclude them would not be the right thing to do, so you must include the tipped workers. Also, every worker has a right to bargain and negotiate their contracts, and we do not want that limited in any way. So please support in actually removing that. And also, we are here to support all the workers that are not in a living wage right now, from fast food workers to janitors to all workers that basically need to raise their way of life. It is past time. We can no longer wait. The time for waiting is over. Please pass the minimum wage and support these workers to have a better life. Thank you.
Ken Bukowski, CJ Patterson, and Rob Arias.
Good evening, members of council. I'm here to talk about the suspender factory. There's some businesses that can't comply with this. The man has to compete with the people in China, and if he raises his wages much more, then he's out of business. So I think it might behoove us to take a look at some of these businesses and see if they can't be saved. I mean, is there a way that maybe, I don't know what could be done with the business, but there's 49 people who are in the manufacturing business. A lot of those businesses have been phased out, and they don't know anything else, so it's going to be tough for them to find other work. So I'm just asking you to give them 5 or 6 months, take a look at the business and see if you can help those people. Thank you.
My name is CJ Patterson, counselor for Emory Secondary School. Just so happen to be the only high school in Emeryville. I am the individual that issues out work permits for the kids at the schoolhouse. I have been contacted over the past month. I have been contacted by several people throughout the community, either for or against, and wish for me to come out and speak to you guys. Me and my students have been, at the high school, all the juniors and seniors, we've been talking about this for the past month. And simply put, we would like for you to come out and have a conversation with us before you make this decision. What we are hearing is that, well, number one, it's already difficult for the kids to find a job, period, just because they're kids. They come with limitations and a bunch of handicaps that can be overcome. However, we're also hearing that, well, and I received phone calls from businesses, CJ, if this goes through, we are not hiring any more kids. I don't know if it's a bluff or not. However, I will hope and pray that you guys will take the kids' opinions into consideration. So once again, I invite each and every one of you out to the high school. Come out, sit down with us, have a discussion. I'll buy pizza for everybody. This is real. And just hear them out. They have some fabulous ideas. Keep in mind, they are for increasing the minimum wage. One of them, when I brought up the topic, one of them said, "Oh, hell yeah, it's about damn time. Come on, let's do this." They were excited. I'm just concerned as to how this will play out for the kids. Okay, that's all I'm asking.
It's Rob Arias. Saw him earlier, maybe he left. Barb Singleton, Brian Donahue, and Cole Tibbetts.
Hello, I'm Barb Singleton. I'm the Emeryville representative from the League of Women Voters of Berkeley, Albany, and Emeryville. I thought, when I was listening at home right now, what can I possibly add to this conversation? But I did want to relay my experience of working in 2008 for See's Candies in Stonestown Mall. And that was just for the holiday season. That was a very tough year for me. But what I want to relay to you is that women were treated definitely differently. I did take on the challenge of wearing the white dress with a black bow tie, but I was asked to buy a slip, and that was about $15 at Macy's, and I was not reimbursed for it, and I was just told, shut down. I also, women have to wear pantyhose, and those cost, I would guess, I don't know, 2008, I don't think I've worn any since 2008, but anyway, they cost about $5 a week, and that's an ongoing thing. So if you're working at See's, you know, that's an ongoing expense that women have to pick up, and it's not reimbursable. And I'm really shocked because I love See's Candies, I love Scotch Mallow, I love Rocky Road, but Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway own See's Candies, and you can't reimburse women for keeping up the marketing image of Martha C. I mean, this has been on my mind ever since 2008, and thanks for listening. And please pass this minimum wage, obviously, too. Thank you.
Brian Donahue.
That's Brian.
So I've lived in Emeryville for 35 years. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Ruth Atkin for your leadership in this. And as I've said before, this town has massively redeveloped over the last 20 some odd years. And the development we've gotten has not been very stellar, to say the least. What we've gotten are, you know, a plethora of low wage, minimum wage service sector jobs. And you know, it's an embarrassment. I don't like to say that I'm from Emeryville when I travel around the Bay Area because of that image. We're seen as a, you know, there's like a warren of malls here, and we're seen as just a location for a lot of low-wage service sector jobs. And so insofar that the mayor has helped move that kind of development forward, I will say this to Mayor Atkins: I thank you for ameliorating some of what I would consider some of the mistakes you've made in the past. And this, as I said before, this goes a long ways towards ameliorating those mistakes you've made, in my opinion. And I just wanted to further add, this is a moral thing you're doing here. This is what government is for. And that's why we have government, to step in and try to also ameliorate the excesses of this sort of blinkered capitalism that we have. And I just really appreciate your efforts here in this regard for the whole council, but especially to Mayor Atkin, I'm sorry. And lastly, I wanted to say, regarding the 1442, that's a rational number. The idea of that is if a person makes that much money, then they're not eligible. If they work 40 hours a week, then they're not eligible for government assistance, say for welfare payments and that sort of thing. So that's what this is based on. So I thank you very much.
Cole Tibbetts.
Good evening, Council. My name is Cole Tibbetts. I am here to represent my family's business, the Oaks Card Club. We are one of Emeryville's largest and oldest businesses. I am not here to speak against minimum wage. We support a living wage in Emeryville. I'm here to ask the Council to delay its implementation and conduct an economic impact study to see how this will really affect all of Emeryville's businesses. An increase of this size and speed is really going to be too much for many of the businesses to handle in such a short time. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. The people who didn't come when I called their name, I'll give them one last chance in case they're still here. Rob Arias, Susan Newman, Neil McDonald, or Steve Gilbert. I guess they had to leave. Anybody else who didn't submit a card who wants to speak at this time? All right, I'm closing public comment, and now council will deliberate and provide direction to what the staff was looking for. So who wants to pitch in on the questions that were asked?
I'll start, Mayor Atkin. And first, I'd like to thank, I wasn't at the last meeting, and I just want to thank the council because I think you did an absolutely outstanding job moving this forward. The same is true of the community. I think we all agree here that the minimum wage ordinance is going to go through. The devil is in the details. I was particularly glad to see the representative from the Emory High, because that is one, you know, we've heard about all the benefits of raising the minimum wage, and I think as a community we are all behind moving this minimum wage ahead, but we must not tell a false story here and say everything is going to come up roses. It's going to be just all good, because I appreciate what Mr. Tibbetts says about an economic study. There have been analysis, economic studies, all sorts of interesting information that has been available to the council. And we clearly see that we could spend 6 months or a year and $50,000 and we would come back to the same type of situation where you have the labor research and education study from the University of California looking at all the positive aspects that we have heard from the union members here tonight. And clearly there are positive aspects. What we have not heard, but I'm sure we're all aware of, that we have looked at what the Bureau of Labor Statistics says about 1/3 of people would lose their jobs, young people, and that's why I was particularly glad that the fellow from Emory High came forward. These are serious considerations. We cannot say to the community, this is going to solve the problems. It is a step forward and a step up, and I believe we have to take it tonight. I'd like to specifically go to, so I am not in favor of doing an economic study. In the first place, Emeryville is a statistic anomaly. It's too small. You're not really going to get accurate, available information. We are going into unknown territory here. We should be telling the community this is a step up, a step forward. We do not know what the unintended consequences are, but we should be very alert to see what they are. So the other thing that concerns me here, and I really appreciate the outpouring from the union members, because you've worked a hard shift all day, I know you guys, and it's very impressive when you come forward and sit through a meeting like this. But I think we have to be clear that we're not solving anything. We want to move ahead in terms of the questions that have been asked of the council direction. As far as I'm concerned, I think we should eliminate the nonprofit definition, that we should make this as clean and simple as possible. And then I want to address the effective date. Many of you here tonight are not aware of the fact this has been a very stable city for a very long time, a couple of decades. On July 1st, we are going to lose our city manager, our city attorney, the police chief is no longer with us, the police commander is moving away. And in August, we will lose our very valuable community services director. We have a city here that is in a pretty serious circumstances, and we are asking this staff, and we always ask a lot of staff, we put enormous demands on our staff, we are asking them to pull together all these rules and regulations by July 1st. I propose to, and I think Scott, you and Diane were on the right track at that last meeting of moving the effective date to October. Let us give the staff time to do a proper job. You know, we're in a state of disarray here in terms of our leadership. This will give small businesses time to, it's a new way of doing business. Most of these small businesses have very close margins. They have, if they have any capital, it's probably very insufficient capital. But can we really take a look at an October 1st date to make this an effective date? I hate to make anybody wait for an increase, but if you're going to do something, let's do it right. Let's do it so that once you put it into place, there is a clear and definite track. If you have a problem, if there is a violation, you know what has to be done and how it's going to be done and what we move on. And I just want to make one further comment. I have heard this base canard about the city of Emeryville being a how can I say, described as all low-wage, minimum-wage workers. Well, our good friends at eBase have provided us with a statistic, and according to them, in 2014, out of 22,179 Emeryville workers, only 2,227 were minimum wage workers. So anybody who says this is a sea of minimum wage workers in Emeryville clearly does not have, as usual, the right information. But this is what I'm asking the council to really think very carefully about the implementation date. There's another concern I have before I close. I'm so glad we had the turnout from the workers' perspective, from the union perspective. I am very concerned that we have not really heard, except for one or two voices, from the small business community. And that concerns me, because we have placed a high value on small business. We've tried to help small business, and we have all received letters from small business owners saying that they have been harassed and intimidated by a person in the city. Now, that's not right. Everybody should be able to get up and talk without being harassed. So that's my comments, and they're my suggestions to the council.
Diane? Sure. Thank you, Nora. I want to thank everyone who's spoken up tonight at the last meeting and at the meeting before that. I really want to express my gratitude for the workers, the residents, the people of faith, and the small business owners at the last meeting, because they were the majority at that meeting. And I think, Nora, the reason you might not be seeing them here is because we came to consensus with many of them, and I'd like to express my gratitude specifically. There are some small business owners here in the room with us, some of the owners from Black Bear Diner who I met with, and I'm sorry to call you out, but I just wanted to express my gratitude that you had the conversation with me and that you support your workers, and that you're finding a way to make it work. You've heard tonight from people from all sectors of low-wage jobs about how hard it is to live and how hard it is to live in Emeryville at a minimum wage. I want to show my gratitude for those small business owners who have dealt with, you know, what might be a blow financially. But, you know, we, just as our workers are creative enough to make a living off of minimum wage and support their families, I think our businesses will be creative enough to make it work. And we'll all lift up together. On the specific points, I just wanted to say I agree. I co-signed with Nora. I want to remove the nonprofit definition. I am in favor of striking E1 from the collective bargaining agreements portion of the contract, and I'm happy to hear staff say that this will not delay the ordinance. And in terms of date, I I did mention October as a date in the last meeting, but weighed against hearing a 16-year-old who has 2 jobs and supports her family, and the young lady who works at Starbucks and can't afford to live on her own. I know people say that these are jobs where people should not have a reasonable expectation to support themselves. I disagree. So I think July is an appropriate date.
Jack?
I also want to thank everyone for attending this evening, and I, like Diane, want to thank the small business owners who sat down and spoke with me in our community. I really appreciate their input and their openness and their willingness to talk. So thank you. The nonprofit definition, I agree with Nora and Diane on that. Let's remove it. I also would like to strike E1. And for me, I think July 1 is the implementation date I want to see on the ordinance. For me, I think that when we're talking about timelines and moving forward, that the council all along has seen this as an urgent issue among other urgent issues to lift up people in our town. In addition to talking about the minimum wage, we've been having conversations about affordable housing since February, had another one on Saturday. And tonight we'll be talking about tenant protections. And I see all of these things working in tandem with one another and as necessary to address what is a crisis of inequality in the Bay Area. So I appreciate the vast amount of work that staff has put into this effort. And after tonight, we're in the home stretch. And so I think a lot of the work has been done, and we'll give more predictability by deciding to go ahead and go forward with this. So July 1 would be my preferred date.
Scott?
I was a little slow to understand the issues of minimum wage, and I have really seen that it matters in so many ways. I also recognize that it's going to stress many small businesses and especially restaurants in Emeryville. It's really time that we make a move for our low-wage workers. We have to do something, and I think that our staff can make things happen on July 1, even though I see that it is extra work. I think that we need to do the right thing and keep that date. I agree with getting rid of the nonprofit exemption and just have it be a part of the definition of small business. And I agree also with striking the E1 on collective bargaining and keeping the second part.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. I want to say a couple things. First of all, buenas noches and gracias to people who came tonight who aren't used to necessarily speaking in a public forum, for those for whom it was difficult to speak, for people who had to be away from their families or make other arrangements. If we were truly a family-friendly city with all of our policies, we would have offered childcare in the overflow room. So we have a ways to go, but we offered childcare for our housing discussion that happened with the Planning Commission on Saturday. We are at a very historical juncture right now in this country, in the Bay Area, in California, in the East Bay, in that the income inequality between the richest and the poorest are growing. It's kind of out of control. And it's been my intent for many years to be able to lift the floor of poverty so that people who could work full-time, 40 hours a week, not be eligible for any public assistance program, because actually it becomes more expensive to society as a whole if we keep people poor and down. So I'm very excited to be able to come to this point in time where our larger neighbor has taken a lead through a voter initiative, and we get to meet that for our small businesses and to have what in effect is a tempered, more regional approach as the small businesses asked us to adopt, and I think they've gotten that. And as we worked on this last meeting, there was a consensus that emerged, and the small business community in particular came and asked us to enlarge the definition in the ordinance from 10 employees. They asked for 50, we gave them 55, and to allow for a little extra growth. They asked that we go with Oakland's rate, not our living wage rate, and for the small businesses, they get that. And we also have a pathway towards 15 in just a few years' time. So in terms of this body being able to set a public policy that's for the common good, this first reading of this ordinance goes a long way to providing for the common good, and I think that's why we're elected to serve the people up here. And in terms of the specifics, in terms of where the staff was asking for clarification, I think they got it about just eliminating special, eliminating talking about nonprofits any separately from a small business, and keeping July 1 as an effective date. And I could almost read between the lines in the staff presentation of like begging us to have more time so that they could put something more thoughtful together. And all I can say is that as public servants, we try to do the best for the common good as we can. And I'm sorry that you'll be busting your butt to make this happen. But there's a greater common good to come from a July 1 effective date rather than an October 1 effective date. And so for that, again, with those amendments.
So what I would like to do is just walk through them, Michael and I, just so we're all very clear. So I'm going to ask Michael to pull up actually Section 1 of the ordinance. It's something that, excuse me, that neither of you referenced, but it's this revision in respect to the Senate Bill 669, or AB 669 rather. So
okay, so can we say something that if a state bill were to come forward,
we do,
that has something like that?
Yeah, it does continue to say that it would preempt any state statute which purports to preempt it. So that's the way that Section 1 would read. And then what I can do is direct you to your actual ordinance that's in your hard copy, because I don't think we have a version to slip up there. But we would eliminate subsection G of section 5-37.01, the definitions. It's the definition of nonprofit corporation. Of course, all the other definitions following it would get renumbered. Then in section 5-37.02, subsection B and C and C5, there's a reference to nonprofit corporations, and we would remove the phrase nonprofit corporations or in each of those locations. And then finally, I believe it's finally, section, boy, all these numbering, 5-37.07, subsection E, waiver. We would strike subsection 1 to waiver, which deals with existing collective bargaining agreements. We would retain the language in subsection 2, which is titled waiver through collective bargaining. And essentially what we would like to do is retain that title, waiver through collective bargaining, and that would be the title for subsection E. And that would be the extent of the revisions, and so that would be the subject of your first reading.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
So this is a procedural, I don't know, idiocy or something. If we didn't read by title only, we would have to read 16 pages of what the actual ordinance says. So for expediency's sake, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Okay. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Emeryville adding Chapter 37 to Title 5 of the Emeryville Municipal Code, minimum wage, paid sick leave, and other employment standards, and adding Section 3-1.141 to Chapter 1 of Title 3 of the Emeryville Municipal Code, business taxes.
So is there a motion to...
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Do we need to do a roll call?
Please.
Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Asher.
Aye.
Councilmember Donahue.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Atkin.
Aye. Let's clap. Oh, good, I got a twinkle. I'm glad. There's some deaf applause here. I want to thank everybody for your respectful behavior tonight. I think we broke some new ground, and thank you all for coming. And we will go back now. We'll give you a minute to leave unless you want to watch the rest of our municipal affairs here.
Move the consent calendar.
Wait. We're not there yet. Is there a city manager's report?